Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the number one liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and no, your vision of me is not. I'm not. Well, technically, I am frozen. Okay. Give me just a second here. I'm going to see if I can get the video working again. There we go. All right. So, yeah, well, I went and I updated my streaming software, and of course that kind of screws things up on things, and now, you know, the lights are off and everything's, the lighting is off, the colors are off. So, yeah. Anyway, I look a little funny. I know it's all right. I'll eventually get it figured out. But you know what? You're not here to look at me. You're here to listen to my wonderful product that I put out. Ah, hell, this is a live show. What the heck? I mean, why not? Why not be, you know, completely messed up, broken out, everything screwed up? It all happens. That's it. I'm going home. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh. This is live broadcasting. This is exactly what happens with live broadcasting. At times you end up where you're all screwed up. So, yeah. All right. I'm seeing everybody in the chat. Of course, the standard, wait a minute. I can't think of what 3 Chevy always says. Something about something deplorables. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, all right. Hello, everyone. 250. This is not how I wanted my 250th episode to go, but hey, you know what? Like I said, live broadcasting, that's what happens. And so we're just going to press on. We're just going to press on and get this stuff done. All right. So tonight, yeah, and apparently I'm on fire. Well, that's the background. Whoops, wrong side. That's the background. That's the fireplace right over there. Yeah. All right. Okay. Great things have been happening. I've been getting photos and pictures of people, all my Whiskey Warrior P1s from all over the place. They are giving me, or they are sending me, pictures of not only them in Whiskey Warrior gear, but also they are running around. Those of you who have the Whiskey Musings button from a giveaway that we did. God, I think it was on the 4th of July when it was done. But anyway, the giveaway that we did with all the buttons that I say we, it was actually Outlaw Dogs. Got to give credit where credit is due. She's the one that created up all of the buttons. She's the one that spent all the time sending them out. She's the one that resent out others. You know, when the Postal Service screwed up and ripped up the packages and lost the buttons. But anyway, got to give credit where credit is due. She did a fantastic job. Hopefully we'll do another one sometime in the near future. But anyway, those of you that have the buttons have been running around and sending me photos. I've gotten photos from the Flight 93 Memorial. I got a photo of the button and also the Constitution of the United States, the leather-bound Constitution version, or leather-bound version of the Constitution in front of the Constitution. And also I received a button, a button from 3 Chevy, actually, a button picture from 3 Chevy as well. I am so happy, and you guys don't know, when I see those photos, you guys need to, you just don't even know what it does for me. You know, you guys are the greatest. I love every single one of my Whiskey Warrior P1s, and you know, if you come and join, it's really, really easy to become a P1. All you have to do is run off and just subscribe over on Rumble or any of my other outlets, Facebook, YouTube, if you have to. Oh, speaking of YouTube, I am no longer serving my suspension, so this is the first broadcast for that. And anyway, so this is my first broadcast back after a week-long suspension because they didn't like what I said about some medical information a few episodes ago, episode 247. Go back and check, or go to Rumble and check it out if you're really that interested, if you haven't seen it. Yes, I can see Facebook tonight. I can see the Facebook folks, so I'm seeing some of the chats here. Don't know how long it's going to last. It's just a mess. But anyway, all right. So tonight I am drinking Four Roses. Oh, wow. God, I really have to get this camera fixed. Four Roses, single barrel, is in my glass tonight. And, of course, in the glass we have, in my True Grit Roots Network Rocks glass, I have my Whiskey Stones, as always. So let me go ahead and... All right. And not only have I hit 250 episodes, I've also reached a milestone of 600. Actually, I believe it's at 603 subscribers or followers, whichever one you want to call it, on Rumble. Thank you so much. As Buddy points out, I can remember when we were trying to get 100. I gotta tell 100 subs. I gotta tell you, this has been an interesting road, to say the least. And I appreciate all. Again, I can't. I mean, without you, there isn't a show. Otherwise, I'm just talking into cyberspace and not really doing anything. I know that there's some people over on Twitter that go and watch there, and I know that obviously there's Facebook and Rumble. Not everybody watches the lives. They come and they pick them up afterward and things like that. I get your messages. I get all of that stuff. It's just fantastic. And Outlaw Dogs, of course, even though I called and shouted out her name, the Whiskey Warrior mascots, the Delaware Valley Water Moccasins kicks off their season or their practice, so she will not be showing up on Wednesdays, which is okay. That's the way things work around here, which is why we record these things, so you can come back and watch later. We also have, let's see, what other milestones that are out there. Oh, Jay Bose's Red Pill Fix. His podcast has reached 8 episodes, which is cool. You ought to go check that out. That's he's got it all over all over, I think, Spotify, maybe iHeartRadio, some of those other places. You ought to go check it out. It's kind of interesting. Definitely more of the conspiracy theory type deal, paranormal type deal. So yeah, and I'm seeing some more people are popping in. I'm seeing definitely a lot of the regulars, and I'm seeing some regulars that have been away for a little bit that have come back. And thank you. I do appreciate that. I appreciate all of you, of course. Okay, let's move on to tonight's sponsor, headline sponsor, of course, TGRN Blues. Check this out. So I've been telling you about... welcome, Nicole B1240. Welcome. She or he, whatever, says the first time joining the live. Been a subscriber for a while, but usually running kids around to games and practices. Yeah, I know how that goes. So welcome. Okay. So let me get back to where I was. So TGRN Blues. I've been telling you about all the different shows that we have, but I missed one of the most important ones. one of the most varietal ones that we have. It's the Blue Plate Special, and it runs Monday through Friday from noon to 1 Central Time. It's an hour long. Of course, hello, Blue Plate, lunchtime, that's what it works. But what happens is each one, well, I won't say everyone, but several of our on-air personalities will go and take a Blue Plate Special and put together their unique mix of blues for you to listen to during the Central U.S. time, lunch hour. So here's what it is. Come have lunch with the TGRN Blues Crew weekdays, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 Central Time. Featuring tasty blues and R&B cuts from our kitchen. It's a great way to enjoy lunch together. Join hosts Vinnie Mariti, Jonathan Oogie Richards, Jeff Hayes, Holly Harris, and Memphis Mark for the Blue Plate Special, exclusively on TGRN Blues. And that goes in order, actually. I think I did do it in order. So Monday is Vinnie Marini's hour. Tuesday is Oogie's hour. Wednesday is Jeff Hayes, Thursday is Holly Harris, and Friday is Memphis Mark. And you can listen to them. They put together some fantastic hour-long segments. It's just wonderful. So go and check it out when you get a chance. Check it out at tgrn.net. That's True Grit Roots Network, our blues, exclusive blues channel, tgrn.net, out of Austin, Texas. Go and check it out today. And, of course, I am a part owner in that organization, which means that you'll be supporting me at the same time if you do. And before I forget, tonight is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And, of course, we have all of our whiskey stuff here. So, all right. Okay, so I have a pretty big smorgasbord for you tonight when it comes to the all of the news that I have out. But one of the biggest things that I definitely want to talk about is the fact that I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Nikki Haley, honestly, Nikki Haley went and, well, she kind of stuck her foot in it. Now, I actually have not been a Nikki Haley fan. I think that outside of South Carolina, North Carolina, wherever she is, wherever she's from or was governor of, or no, she's the ambassador. That's right. It's the other one, Kristi Noem. That's what I was thinking of. But outside of Nikki Haley, I mean, I don't think anybody outside of maybe a few people in the East would really know about Nikki Haley. And unfortunately, she went and stuck her foot in it. Now, this is not something that I would necessarily. She's governor of South Carolina. Thank you. But she was also the ambassador to the United Nations, I think. But anyway, she went and stuck her foot in it, and she started talking about doxing people on social media, saying that you have to be verified in order to use social media, because she doesn't believe that people are going to be how do I say this? As bold if they are putting their actual name on stuff. And so for me, I understand, I get it, but that also opens up the door when you start forcing people to provide information about themselves when they don't actually need to or don't actually want to. It opens the door to a lot of different things. And so I mean, she hasn't really been polling that great, but apparently she's getting a little bit better. She's polling a little better. Supposedly she might be pulling into second place according to certain polls in coming up to like Iowa and New Hampshire and those kinds of things. So we'll have to see. We'll kind of have to see what sort of happens with her. But yeah, she not only said it on a television show or a television broadcast, but she also said it on a podcast. Same exact thing. So it's not as though she, made a mistake or it was taken out of context. This is something that she really and seriously, I think, feels like this should be, she's probably been wronged, I'll be honest with you. She's probably been attacked on social media. I get attacked all the time on social media. I get called all kinds of names. I get told to, F off and do all kinds of stuff like that. And, I'm just not really, I'm not interested. I'm not going to follow that. I'm not going to follow with that. So, yeah. Anyway, she just wants to end the anonymous stuff, which I think is, she claims that she's doing it in order to try and get rid of the bots, but I honestly think that you can get rid of the bots without having to dox everybody. There's ways that you can work around that, and still, I just think it's one of those things that she's, another nail in her coffin when it comes to the field. Now, of course, Tim Scott dropped out over the weekend, and so now we're down to, I think, 4 or 5 at the most. Chris Christie, I have no idea why that boy is even in the race, other than, like he said when he joined, he just wants to be the disruptor. And it's just a mess when it comes to some of these candidates. I've said it on this program. I'll say it again. Right now, it is Trump's to lose. Trump is, way out ahead in all the polls. And it's just, Anyway, all right. So the next top story. I don't know if you know, but we had one of the biggest communist, in fact, one of the biggest communist leaders come to the West Coast today, actually. And so let me just show you this. And here we go. So Biden and Xi Jinping met today. Now, I don't know if anybody has seen, but if you took a look at the motorcade that was supposedly bringing Xi, let's just put it this way. It was sad because instead of lining the streets like a frickin' American flags, they went ahead and lined the streets in San Francisco with Chinese flags. And honestly, it was, some of the images that I've seen on social media, Twitter mostly, or X, I should say. But I can't even imagine how we could have a foreign dignitary come here and essentially usurp the American flag with their country's flag. Now, some people will say, you know what, that's disrespectful. You should respect their flag. Well, I hate to say it. No, I don't hate to say it. I don't hate to say this at all. The United States flag on United States soil is, according to United States code, supposed to be higher than any other flag. It doesn't bow to any other flag. It doesn't take a back seat. It doesn't take second fiddle. It is the top flag in America. And why you would even line the entire road with Chinese flags over American flags? We're in frickin' America. And so that was just freaking annoying to me. Okay. It's annoying to me when we do this kind of crap. And you talk about Biden being a freaking, wimp and everything. That's exactly it, people. That is exactly it. He more than likely, the one picture that I saw, I think there was one American flag on the side. And so, this is just, this is nuts. They should, if you want to put them up, if you want to put, the Chinese flag up fine. But American flags, put the American flags up, make them high up. And, yeah. So anyway, this is just ridiculous. And then of course there's those photographs of like Janet Yellen, who it looks like she's, about ready to, bow down and kiss Xi's butt. Of course, she doesn't have to bow very far because she is short. And then you have Gavin Newsom. What the hell yes, I understand he's the governor of California. He's not polling very well. He's running a shadow campaign for president, whatever. It's just, you watch these people and they're kissing this man's butt. I don't know why. I take that back. I do know why. Just because they all hope that they can be him, in the next election. But this article from Fox News that I'm showing on the screen, and if you're listening on audio later, head on over to rumble.com, follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. You can take a look at all of the visuals that I put together for this. But the thing that I saw in this article that really kind of chapped my hide is this. They stopped and talked to a guy by the name of Kurt Campbell. Fox News did, and they had him discuss Biden's China strategy. Now, for those who don't know about Kurt Campbell, he is just recently nominated to become the Deputy Secretary of State. And his quote is this: "I can tell you that President Biden intends to make very clear to President Xi to get ready. He's going to be dealing with President Biden for the next 5 years." Campbell apparently told Fox News Digital. Okay. There's no way that they can call that out. No way that they can call that out. They're deluding themselves if that's the case, because of the fact that there is so much stuff that is piling up about Biden and about his son's misdealings and his misdealings and all of the crap. There also was a kickoff, by the way, or a break, I should say, in the whole cocaine in the White House case. So I don't know if anybody saw this. Jesse Waters actually obtained documents that essentially said that they gathered what the Secret Service called secondary DNA from the baggie that was found in the White House. And they've got pictures that came out in the last couple of days of the baggie being set inside of the lockers where, you walk into, I think it's the East Wing, and you walk into that wing and you put all your cell phones and all the other paraphernalia that you can't carry into the White House in these things. They're kind of like lockers. They got keys and all that crap. But anyway, the baggie apparently came back with some touch DNA. And so, Dan Bongino talked about it. He's got a much, much greater angle on the case than what I do. But seriously, people, you've got that. You've got his impending impeachment, which I'm fairly sure it's coming. We have, the trial of his own investigation into the documents case, which he absolutely cannot claim presidential pardons on that. So Dan Bongino has been saying, and I am starting to kind of agree with him, but Dan Bongino's been saying that he believes the deal has already been struck. That he essentially is probably going to bow out of the race after the primaries, and that he is going to pardon him and his son, and at that point bow out of the race. And then of course it'll be the DNC is going to have to figure out who the hell they're going to run. I don't know. I'm starting to think that that's possible. It's entirely possible. especially when you've got things like some of the poll numbers that have come out and all of this other stuff that's been coming out here recently. I got a few articles here on that. But first, before I get into that, I just want to point out that I'm getting a little tired of all of these haters over on X and these Hamas-loving sycophants over on X that keep talking about how using hospitals for cover for their military operations is like an act of war, or sorry, a international war crime for Israel to bomb these people. Well, you know, they keep talking about it, and I'm getting tired of it. I really am. I'm getting a little tired of it. And so here, just to kind of show all of those morons up with this, here in the Epoch Times, the White House accuses Hamas of using Gaza hospital for military operations and calls it a war crime, which is exactly what it is. It is a war crime. They are specifically, and this is something that nobody has been able to totally and completely been able to refute. They are using the civilians as human shields. That's what they do. They keep doing it all the time. And so it's it makes the subheadline here says the situation makes Israel's military operation in Gaza more complicated. No kidding. But the other thing that really chaps my hide is all of these Hamas lovers who are sitting there saying that Israel should stop because it's killing civilians. Well, what they don't tell you is that those civilians are being blocked from leaving by Hamas itself, that Hamas publicly says they don't give a crap about civilians, and they're not interested in the civilians. They're not interested in helping the civilians. In fact, whenever humanitarian aid gets dumped in Gaza, the first thing they do is they take it by force. And that's been shown over and over and over again. These sycophantic idiots, we're just going to keep seeing this. I'm telling you, things are not going to go very well in the near future. It's going to get worse, folks. It's going to get worse. I really believe it's going to get worse, especially the closer that we get to 2024 and the longer that this thing actually drags on. Now, Iran also has been targeting our folks, even though we keep telling Iran, don't. Yeah, well, when are we going to stop saying don't and actually do something about it? Well, we can't, because Biden loves Iran. In fact, he wanted to give them another, I think, 10 billion of their dollars that we, held on for whatever reason. And so, yeah, this is just, this thing in the Middle East, I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And we're just going to have to essentially ride it out, people. We need to ride it out. That's essentially what's going to have to happen here. It's a sad situation, I will admit. But when the enemy, in this case, Hamas, when the enemy is using people as human shields and doing just absolute horrific atrocities, which again, I keep telling people, it's like, look, on October 6th, everything was fine. October 7th is what changed everything. If they'd have freaking, if Hamas had not attacked on October 7th, you wouldn't be seeing this. And realistically, let's be honest, Israel is the only place over there in terms of between Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, so on and so forth. Israel has an air force. They could flatten the crap out of the Gaza Strip without a problem. And, not think twice about it. But instead, they sit there and drop leaflets and tell everybody where they're going and what they're doing. And, try and call buildings and tell people to get out. And even open up those blocked roads that, Hamas has blocked off. The IDF goes in and opens them up so that the civilians can get out. I don't know what, I honestly, I don't know what else Israel can do to show that they are completely not the moral equivalent of Hamas in this whole thing. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here for just a second. And I want to tell you about this wonderful thing, this absolutely wonderful thing where you can get those, those photos I talked about earlier. You can go and grab some wonderful Whiskey Musings logo gear at my store. Go to store.whiskeymusings.online. And right now, between now and Christmas, I am running a special. Use promo code CHRISTMAS at checkout and get 15% off your order. That's promo code CHRISTMAS, all capital letters, at checkout for 15% off. That is my Christmas gift to you. Once again, go to store.whiskeymusings.online, use promo code CHRISTMAS at checkout and get 15% off your order of all the products that I have there. I have got some fantastic logo geared hoodies, t-shirts, cups, aprons, glasses, water bottles, all kinds of stuff. And then I also have those same products in 2 other versions of my motto, when I drink, I think, either with black lettering or white lettering, depending upon the item that is there. Once again, go to store.whiskeymusings.online. Go around, check out all of the products I have available, and remember to use that promo code CHRISTMAS at checkout to get 15% off your entire order. Once again, that's store.whiskeymusings.online and use promo code, all capital letters, CHRISTMAS to get 15% off your order. And Mark, I see that. I did not see the t-shirt order. I only saw one t-shirt and I already know where that goes. So I did not see that other t-shirt order. If you did not get an email confirming your order or getting a confirmation of shipment, then you probably, it probably got lost in the system, to be honest with you. You can go and check that, go and check it out and see if it showed up in your junk mail or your spam folder. But I did not see it there. And in fact, I sent you an email, or I sent you a message on Messenger, Facebook Messenger with that. I hope I didn't send it to the wrong person. But anyway, I did look. Okay. So, those two cases, well, actually there's 3. Okay. I don't know if you'll recall, but there's 3 cases. Colorado, Minnesota, and Michigan all brought cases, legal cases, to try and get Trump kicked off the ballot using the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Well, over the course of the last 2 weeks or week and a half since I announced that, we have an answer from at least 2 of those states. First one here in Washington Examiner, Michigan judge rules that Trump can remain on the primary ballot. And also, Minnesota has also dismissed the insurrection clause challenge and allows Trump to remain on the ballot. Now, the interesting thing about both these cases, if you read these cases, the 14th Amendment and the Section 3, which is what they keep trying to kick it out. But the funny thing about it is that both of these cases, if you read the rulings, the courts didn't really challenge. They didn't really challenge the 14th Amendment. They didn't challenge the whole idea of whether or not Trump was part of an insurrection. In fact, they didn't even rule on whether or not Trump was a part of an insurrection on January 6th. Both courts took the, shall we say, the less intrusive way out by essentially saying, first of all, in Michigan, they said, hey, this is a primary, not a general election. And we can't necessarily, this is for, the Republicans to pick who they're going to put up. So because of that, we're just not going to get involved. But Michigan did leave it open and said, hey, if he ends up on the general ballot, you can refile. Well, what do you expect? I mean, that's Michigan. Michigan's a liberal, progressive, leftist run state. And so, yeah, there you go. But the fun part about this is Minnesota also kind of said about the same thing. They didn't bother to rule on anything with regards to insurrection, the definition of insurrection, or anything else. They just basically kind of said, well, this isn't the general election. It's more of a primary, so we're not going to get involved. Minnesota's also liberal. So yeah, it's just hilarious that, they essentially said, you know what? Nah, we're not going to do this. They're not even going to take it up. In Minnesota. Michigan just basically said the exact same thing. And so it's going to be interesting to see this stuff really play out when it comes to the general election, because again, as I keep pointing out to people on social media, January 6th was not an insurrection. Doesn't even matter how much you want to believe it was. It wasn't. It didn't stop anything. It was over in 3 hours. It didn't even take a SWAT team of cops to bring it down. Most of the people left peaceably after they were told to go home. So I'm sorry, but that ain't much of an insurrection. And no matter what anybody says, and regardless of what people think, it wasn't purposely put together to stop the entire proceedings. I mean, yes, it did slow things down a little bit and, freaked out a few of the wimps in the, and got somebody, unfortunately, an unarmed protester killed. But the fact of the matter is that Trump didn't have anything to do with that. There was a bunch of people who got out of hand like any other riot. And, they just, I don't know where they're going to get this idea that they can even do anything about it. But yeah. Speaking of Trump trials, apparently, according to the Epoch Times, Trump has now filed a motion for a mistrial in his New York fraud case. Now, this thing is really, really interesting to watch from a social media perspective, because you have Letitia James, who is the Attorney General for New York. Now, keep in mind, this trial is not even a criminal trial. It was put in a civil court because of the fact that they don't have actual criminal charges for him. And so they put it in a civil court also, because a civil court, all you have to do is have, quote, a preponderance of the evidence, versus a criminal trial where you have to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime was committed. Well, there wasn't a crime. There's not even a complainant in this case. And the judge has made some serious ethical errors, I think, from the stand and some of the things that he's been talking about. And so that's kind of what the motion for a mistrial is taking into account. Now, the judge, and I keep wanting to call him Aragon, but I know that's not it. Aragon's a movie, a fantasy movie, which Engoron. This guy is probably about as partisan as he could possibly be. He did something that has never been done before in this kind of a case. And so basically what Trump and his attorneys are trying to do is they're making a case for it to get thrown out on appeal, which it probably will, because the judge has already said, I won't even bother to entertain a mistrial filing or a mistrial motion. But then he sort of backed out and said, okay, well, file it in writing. Yeah, yeah, this guy and his court clerk and of course everything. This is just a clown show. We gotta survive the 3-ring circus, folks. We gotta survive the 3-ring circus on this, and get this taken care of as far as that goes. Now, you know that we have the Georgia case too, which, by the way, the Georgia case has already been told by us, or by the AG down there. I can't think of her name right off the top of my head right now, but it's already been said by the AG that this is probably going to go, that case is more than likely going to go like all the way into 2025. So we're not even going to get the end of the Georgia case until after the 2024 election, by their own admission. So we'll just kind of have to see what's going on. Yeah, Redford, that's right. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with the rest of all you intelligent people. Anyway, so this is just, yeah. And realistically, all of these things that are going on, of course, is because of the fact that now we're starting to see, we're 1 year out, roughly, a little less than 1 year out, from the election and from 2024 election. And so, and yes, it is. Jeannie over on Facebook says a civil court with no victim. That's right. There's not one single complainant in that trial. He paid back all of the loans that the banks gave him. He paid back the money. Yeah, it just, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what the heck they're thinking, but there's not even a complainant. He paid back all the money. And the judge, I've told you a couple episodes ago, the judge is sitting there mistaking, the real estate value for what is the market value, of it. And so it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But anyway, as far as Donald Trump goes, this is the reason. This is exactly the reason why. The Post Millennial put this up, and as they're doing a whole bunch of polls, they're doing all these pollings, and honestly, even though I'm going to talk about them because you kind of sort of have to, in the absence of anything concrete, you just sort of have to follow along with whatever the rest of the world is talking about. But realistically, I don't trust the polls. I don't trust the polls at all. And even these ones. But the Post Millennial points out that a poll has Donald Trump, and I think I talked about this before, but has Donald Trump beating Joe Biden in an electoral college matchup. Now, the funny thing about this national survey is that Ron DeSantis would get completely blown out. What this poll, it's a 2020, it's a survey conducted by Stack Data Strategy, and it was published by no other than Politico, Bullshitico, as Dan Bongino calls them. The leftist, you want to know what the leftists are thinking? Go ahead and read their Politico playbook and you'll know. But anyway, they found that Trump would win the Electoral College against Biden in a hypothetical rematch of 292 to 246, respectively. Now, what's interesting about this poll is that it doesn't take into account third-party candidates that are, like Jill Stein and RFK Jr. and those kinds of things. But anyway, the point being here is that it also pulls out that in the case of a DeSantis versus Biden head-to-head election, Biden supposedly would beat the Florida governor by a landslide with a 359 electoral college votes to 179. Okay. Now, again, don't put any trust in the numbers, but here's the thing. Okay. From my perspective, I'm not necessarily ripping on Ron DeSantis, Bonnie. saying stop it with the downgrading of DeSantis. I'm not ripping on him per se. I am saying that his strategy so far, while he's running on his record, is great. It would be a great normal strategy that you could take on if you had a normal election. This is anything but a normal election. We have basement Biden, who won in 2020 and thinks that he's going to win in 2024, being the oldest geriatric, situation. And even I said it early. DeSantis should not be getting into the race. He should wait until 2032. He should finish his gubernatorial stint in Florida, finish that off, maintain Florida, keep it as a stronghold of GOP leadership and voting. And he should have held out and been our next up. Okay. Next up guy. And he decided to get in with a couple of people. I mean, Jeb Bush endorsed him. Paul Ryan endorsed him and those kinds of things. And so, I think he's listening to those folks. And let's be honest, he hasn't really moved anywhere in the polling data at all. Even after the debates, he hasn't really changed much in terms of where he sits in the polling. Not really stood out on the national stage. And so honestly, I just don't think you're right. 2028. Sorry, I was wrong. Thank you, Coco, for kicking me off here. It's 2028. And 2028, 2032. So I just think he jumped in too early. I think he got a little ahead of his skis on this one, and I'm hoping that it's not really going to hurt him because policy-wise, Ron DeSantis has done a really good job in Florida. I just don't think that it was ready for his time. And of course, it's being reflected because he's going up against literally a very well-known name recognition. And let's face it, that's what most of our elections are nowadays. If you don't have name recognition, you have nothing. As Dan Bongino says, everything is either sound bites and snapshots. How good can you look and how good can you sound in a short 30-second bit? And so that is literally where we're at in politics today. Nobody other than, crazy people like me and some of you who pay attention to what's going on actually understand the issues and understand the politics and the things that we're dealing with here and potentially vote on those politics and those decisions and that kind of thing versus just the popularity contest that most of our elections have turned into. And so realistically, we got Trump. Trump's very well known. Biden's very well known too for the wrong reasons. And so that's kind of what we're at here. So again, the voters, the polls, all of these things, remember, they're small samplings. They are probably going to change drastically the closer we get to 2024. And, but right now, Trump, it's going to be a Trump versus Biden versus, RFK Jr. and the rest of the fields of third party candidates, independent candidates, and so on and so forth. Okay. So let me just a second. Let me take a drink here. All right. Let me see. Where am I at here? Yeah. So speaking of Joe and his situation, we've got all of these things that are going on. Not only are the polls pulling for Trump to win, now keep in mind too, the press wants Trump to win because Trump is a draw for the press. They love him. They hate him, but they love him for what he does for them. He brings them ratings. When they can sit and rip on him for something that he said and take it out of context or whatever, they bring him ratings. And so that's what they are after. They want this Trump versus Biden matchup. All right? But Joe is struggling, and he is going to continue to struggle. Now, this article in PJ Media, so many Democrats want let me read that headline again. So many Democrats want to see Slow Joe gone. That's a bit of a tongue twister, especially when you've been drinking. But anyway, there is, according to the article writer here, Stephen Green, overwhelming majorities of Americans want to be rid of President Joe Biden, including half of all Democrats, if, quote, charges that Biden's family had taken more than $30 million in payments from overseas governments and corporations prove true. Well, we don't have to prove it. They're already there. They're already there. You morons just are refusing to see the freaking forest for the trees. But anyway, according to a new IOTC poll that came out on Monday, Americans don't really understand or don't really know what's the best way to get rid of Joe. By that I mean not like get rid of Joe, but by how he should make his exit. So of the 2/3 who said that Biden needs to go, if the charges, of course, are right, which they are, we know they are, nearly 40% of them said that Biden should be impeached and removed from office. A quarter of those 2/3 that voted that, perhaps even less patient, told the TIPP that he should resign immediately. 15% of that 2/3 said that he should stay in office, but decline to run again next year. Now, that's probably the more likely scenario. And you'll have to, all right, look, pet of the week, okay? Here we go. Undocumented pet of the week, but this is Badger. Hi, Badge. How you doing? I don't know what he's doing here. He's my barn cat. Old guy, too. He's like 12 or 13, something like that. But anyway, he's hanging out behind me here. So that was the tail. So that's Badger. All right. So there was our pet of the week. Okay. So, yeah, there's all these polls keep coming out, and they keep saying Joe has got to go. And a lot of that has to deal with the fact that if you look at all of the things that they've tried, Bidenomics, which is a failure, complete failure, everything that they keep talking about, all of his fantastic wins, they're all like, come on, they're horrible. His whole messaging, he's just a garbage president. The worst, I think, at least in modern American history. Potentially, he could be considered the worst in all American history. But anyway, it's not just the Republicans that want him to go. It's all of them. And speaking of Bidenomics and his economic message that he's been putting out, which I rip on all the time, by the way. I rip on all the time. And, on social media and everything. And yes, buddy, his name is Badger. That is correct. The kitty cat, by the way. He's kind of our barn cat, really. That's sort of what he is. We inherited him from a neighbor who left. But anyway, so Breitbart came up with this, back to the show. Breitbart came up with this where there's a report running around that Joe Biden's inner circle is well aware that his economic message is not resonating with his voters. Well, there's a reason why his economic message is not resonating with voters. I mean, let's be honest. Are you better off now, 3 years into his presidency, than you were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? Okay? Really, are you any better off money-wise? I can tell you I'm not. I definitely am not. And in fact, here I've been kind of trying to figure out how to get this message across to people. I've been kind of harping on it on the socials, of course. But here's an example, okay? From 2016 to 2020, okay? And this is an inflation calculator. Here, let me go ahead. I'm going to blow this up a little bit so everybody can kind of see it a little bit better. But here's an online inflation calculator that measures the dollar's buying power over time. Now, it goes all the way back to, like, I don't know, 18 something, 19 something when it first comes in. But it talks about and it adjusts for whatever years you put in. So here's the thing. So from 2016, if in 2016 I purchased a item for a single dollar, okay? In 2020, that same item would have cost only $1.08, meaning that the cumulative rate of inflation from 2016 to 2020, keep in mind, this is his predecessor. This is Donald Trump. The entire cumulative rate of inflation was 7.8%, just less than 8%. Now, that's not great, to be honest with you. That really isn't the greatest inflation rate. I mean, I would much rather see it like, lower than that. But if I go in this inflation calculator and I put if in 2020 versus 2023, and I hit calculate. So remember this number. So 7.8% is the cumulative rate of inflation across the 4 years of Donald Trump's first term. Now, if I do the same thing over the 3 years of Biden's term, because he came into office technically in 2021, but I'll give him 2020 as the starting point. If I purchased an item for $1 in 2020 and also did the same thing in 2023, it would cost me 19 more cents. That means that just in those 3 years, from 2020 to 2023, okay, the cumulative rate of inflation is 18.9% in the U.S. Okay, that's roughly a little over 2 times. It's like 2.1 times what 4 years of Donald Trump gave us. This is ridiculous. Inflation is a cumulative effect, meaning that if in 2020 to 2021, we had a 3% rise in inflation. Then from 2021 to 2022, we had another 3% rise in inflation. That means over the course of 2 years, that's a 6% rise in inflation. This is part of the reason why the government doesn't tell you these kinds of cumulative stats, because they don't want you to actually see the bad. They want to kind of cover that up. They keep talking about inflation being lower than it was last year, which is true. Okay. But unfortunately for these people, what they don't seem to understand is prices are still going up. They're just not going up quite that fast. And so we have our cumulative rate of inflation right now, again, is just under 19%. Now you add to that the hike in interest rates. So I'm sorry, my gosh, if you have a variable rate loan on your house, like an ARM on your house, I feel sorry for you. I mean, hell, even now, credit cards, I think, are running roughly 24-25% interest. How anybody can sit here and say that Bidenomics is actually doing anything for them is completely beyond me. They are a complete moron and do not understand economics. Now, I'm not an economics major. I'm going to tell you that. But I do understand how economics, basic economics 101 works. Now, Buddy Weiser points out that doesn't include gas and food. That's right. That's the other thing. Inflation, the inflation rates, by the way, they don't include gas and food. They take that out. So when Biden talks about a 3.7% inflation, they've removed the price of gas and the price of food from it. So it's not even a real number. It's not even a real number that they're giving you in terms of inflation, but it still doesn't matter. We should have, in order for Biden to talk about his, to talk about lowering inflation, our inflation rate should be in the negatives. That's how that works. Okay. Coming up after the break, I've got something more on this, and then we'll get into some more stupidity that's out there. But first, I want to tell you about this wonderful document created by our founding fathers, known as the Constitution of the United States. Check out this fantastic pocket-sized copy of the Constitution of the United States. It comes in a Saddleback leather-bound format. It has an 1/8 of leather, Saddleback leather. The pages inside are tear-resistant and water-resistant. Look at this binding. It is stitched all the way through, both the pages and the leather. It is a fantastic gift. It has a 100-year warranty against defects in materials and workmanship. If this thing falls apart, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will replace it, fix it, or replace it, guaranteed. Look at these rounded corners. You know, I've been told by some of the most wonderful people, my Whiskey Warrior P1s, that these are some sexy rounded corners. These are some sexy rounded corners right here. This is fantastic. If you want one, in fact, I just ordered a bunch myself because don't tell anybody, but I'm putting them in some stockings this year. I'm giving them all to my family and friends. A fantastic copy of the United States Constitution, the greatest document that is ever made for we the people being in charge of government, and unfortunately is sadly not read and understood. I got more on that in just a minute. But you want one of these? Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's constitution.whiskeymusings.online, and you can pick one of these up, or you can pick up multiples. They do have packs. Granted, I don't know anybody that would want to buy like 25 at a time, but you can start at 25. And so grab one, give it out for your friends. It is Buddy tested, Buddy approved, Billy approved, Billy the Kid approved, and my youngest Whiskey Warrior has proven the authenticity of the information contained within because he passed his civics badge in Scouts with this book. Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and pick a copy or 2 or 10 up today. Get them in your stocking stuffers for all of your liberal and conservative friends. Liberals to educate them, conservatives just because you want this family heirloom to be passed down over and over and over again. Once again, that's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Go check it out today and pick 1 or 2 or 4 up for yourselves. And I thank the Institute on the Constitution for not only providing us with this product, but for allowing me to be an affiliate and a spokesperson push for this. Greatest document ever written. All right. So one last thing on inflation. Now, I don't know, and the economy. Now, I don't know if anybody really realizes this, but when I was in school, everybody talked about how much impact small business actually has on our economy. Our economy, for the most part, runs on small to medium-sized businesses. We don't necessarily run on the big Fortune 500 companies. In fact, studies and analysts have shown that if all of our small to medium-sized family-owned kind of businesses went away, the entire economy would collapse. And the reason being is because those small businesses are the foundation for our economy. And, Democrats, liberals, leftists, they don't get that. They don't understand that. Well, this is a little disturbing and should be disturbing. This is just yet another indication that Bidenomics sucks. This from the Daily Caller. Small businesses derailed by rise in interest rates. It slows down our growth. So small businesses are having to put off capital purchases as high interest rates hit them harder than the bigger companies with greater access to funds, according to the Wall Street Journal. In 2021, when interest rates were lower than they are now, larger businesses only paid 2% of their revenue on interest payments, while small businesses spent around 6%, which is projected to grow to about 7% by next year, according to the Wall Street Journal. The average interest rate has since risen for small businesses, increasing from 4.6 in August of 2021 up to 9.8 in September, the highest since December 2006. So Tom Rowan, owner of 1-800 T-shirts, told the Wall Street Journal about the effect of interest rates on his business. It slows down our growth. When the cost of capital was lower, it was a little easier to take on a bigger risk and bite off a little more. Of small businesses, more than half have reported that the rising interest rates were affecting their business, while 19% predicted that they would be impacted in the future, according to a survey that was conducted by the Wall Street Journal on 450 small businesses. Additionally, more than 20% of entrepreneurs said that the current tighter lending standards and higher interest rates were hampering their hiring decisions. Now, this leads right into the jobs report, okay? This leads right into the jobs report. When you start taking the capital, and this is capitalism 101 right here, okay? You're getting a master class in the introductory to capitalism. When you start taking the capital expenditure budget from small businesses and forcing them to use that money for payments and interest rate payments, what you're dealing with is a lack of funds that are available to either do capital investments, meaning buying more material, buying more machines to manufacture things, and also allowing for a higher payroll, which allows you to hire people. We're going to start seeing a shrinkage. Now, this is one of the things that the economists have been going off on in terms of the jobs report, because every single time, and I told you about this on a past episode, every single time the jobs numbers come out, they get revised down. They've been revised down almost every single month over the last year. And this is why that a lot of the experts keep talking about us potentially getting into a recession with this. So, I'm sorry, but this whole Bidenomics thing, it really, really is turning into a sour lemon for the American people. And they are just not picking up on this at all from the Biden administration in terms of how good things are supposed to get. Now, do you want to know what else? Leftists are actually being handed a bunch of plates here recently. Loony leftists in Oregon are learning a very, very sad lesson. This in the post-millennial. Oregon voters want to walk back a legalization of hard drugs. Now, here's the thing. Last year, I think think it was last year, if I recall correctly. Yeah, no, in 2020, voters in Oregon, which a lot of people, call a part of the left coast, the West Coast, left coast. But in 2020, voters in Oregon passed what was called Measure 110, which decriminalized the possession of certain drugs in small quantities for personal use, and then shuffled the revenue from the pot smoking taxes that they have to resources aimed at helping addicts. But here's the thing. The intent of this was supposed to make it so that the addicts would realize that they're addicts, and they would go and instead of putting them in jail for some, misdemeanor or even small felony charge, that they would voluntarily go for treatment. Turns out that's not the case. I mean, forget the fact that us conservatives all said, well, that was stupid. You guys probably shouldn't have done that. And all this is going to do is make things worse. Well, guess what? It is. It is. Since it went into effect the following year, crime and substance use has not gone down as the measure was sold to the folks. But as a result, residents are also calling for a reintroduction of those same criminal penalties for users. So this was a poll conducted by DHM Research earlier this year that revealed that more than 60% of Oregonians want to see the decriminalization aspect of Measure 110 repealed. Though support for the use of cannabis taxes to fund treatment programs has maintained popularity. So, again, leftists being handed a big pile of eat crow on a plate. Oh, these people. I just can't. I just don't get it. This is like the whole defund the police movement. I mean, these people are such idiots. But anyway, so Oregon passed this Measure 110 and they went ahead and decriminalized drugs. And now all of a sudden the druggies and everything else are going, why would I bother going into, a treatment program? 90% of the time, they don't give a shit. I'm sorry. They don't give a shit. They just don't care. And so, they just don't care about it. They don't want help. An addict, and I have one in my family. It's not my family, it's by marriage, but an addict needs to hit rock bottom and want to get out in order to stop. Half the time you have to do some sort of an intervention to get them to actually attend these programs. And the recidivism rate, believe it or not, is actually pretty high for a lot of these, especially for those that don't have the willpower or the desire to want to quit. And so this is part of the problem. They assumed that, hey, if we just made it to where, you could go and get free, free treatment, that they would just go in droves. Yeah, it just isn't going to happen. Just isn't going to happen. Oh, gosh. Our liberal friends, they just know so much that isn't so, according to Ronald Reagan, and that is totally 100% correct. All right. Speaking of not knowing so much that isn't so, I saw this, and I've got to admit that I am so glad that I'm ahead of the power curve, but this also kind of, I know self-praise stinks. But this also kind of puts another notch in the cap of Speaker Johnson. It's slipped by a couple of people, I think. But The Hill had it and had this article, and somebody else picked it up. I can't remember if it was the Gateway Pundit or somebody like that. But apparently on Tuesday, so check this out. Apparently on Tuesday, Speaker Mike Johnson pushed back on the belief that there should be a separation between church and state in the U.S., arguing that the founding fathers wanted faith to be a big part of government. he says, separation of church and state is a misnomer. People misunderstand it. And he said this on CNBC's Squawk Box when asked about him praying on the House floor. Of course, it comes from a phrase that was in a letter that Jefferson wrote, which is not in the Constitution. Now, I believe I did an episode, I'm fairly certain I did an episode on this, where I laid out the case that the idea of the separation of church and state was not a impenetrable wall, but it was actually more of a one-sided separation. Now, for those of you that don't know, the term separation of church and state comes from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote while president, okay, in 1802 to the Danbury Baptists Association of Connecticut. And they had sent him a letter expressing concerns about religious liberty. And in his reply, Jefferson basically laid out that the First Amendment, which bars Congress from prohibiting the free exercise of religion, built a wall of separation between church and state. Now, here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem. That wall of separation only goes one way. Because here's the thing, okay? If you read the First Amendment to the Constitution, it clearly says that Congress cannot make a law. Congress cannot make a law establishing a religion like Britain did for the Church of England, which is what those people escaped. That was their whole purpose of coming here, people, was to escape religious persecution and be able to worship their religion in peace. That was their whole purpose for coming over here. Well, I won't say the whole purpose, but it was a very big part of why they came to the New World, was to free themselves from the whole idea that they had to be a part of the Church of England. And upon coming here, they wanted to make sure that the new government that was here was not going to establish a religion like the Church of England, like the monarchy over in Great Britain had done for this. Now, the other piece out of this is that the Congress cannot establish a law that prohibits the free exercise thereof religion. Once again, this is a limiting document. The Constitution, and this is part of where some of the people who are uneducated about this seem to get mixed up. The Constitution is not something that hands the people the rights. It is a document that essentially says, hey, government, this is what we, the people, give you, and these are the guardrails that you have to stay within. And so what ends up happening is when you look at it as the Constitution granting us rights rather than the people already having those rights and the Constitution is hemming in government, when you look at it from that perspective, it makes total sense that religion, religious freedom, freedom of religion, not freedom from religion, is what we're talking about here. In fact, as I laid out on that other episode, you can look it up. I think I titled it, in fact, Separation of Church and State, or had it in the show notes or something. But anyway, that the whole purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The founding fathers wanted a Judeo-Christian values, principles, etc. in the government, because that's how you had a moral and religious people. Like John Adams said, the Constitution is built for a moral and religious people. It's not acceptable for anybody else. They knew that God, faith, morals, values, ethics, standards all come from a common religious background. And that is why they basically said the government can't tell you what you can do in your religious beliefs, that the government cannot establish a religion. But what it does not say is it does not say that religion cannot permeate government. And that's where a lot of people get confused over this entire item. Now, the whole Thomas Jefferson thing, I got hit with this on social media. Thomas Jefferson was one of the people who wrote the Constitution. No, he didn't. He wasn't even there. He was actually in France when the Constitution itself, the original Constitution, was written, as well as the first 10 amendments. They weren't written by him. The Declaration of Independence that was done, 2-3 years earlier. Yep, that was him. But the Constitution itself, Jefferson had nothing really to say. Now, granted, there was some basis in some of his laws that he had when he was the governor of Virginia and that kind of stuff that were adopted. But the reality of it is that Thomas Jefferson, by taking that out of context, and by the way, on that other episode, I show you the actual draft where Thomas Jefferson is like crossed out a phrasing because he wanted to make sure that he got the exact phrasing correct. That he crossed out some of the ideas, and it clearly basically states that it's government that is hampered, not the people being, wanting to infuse religion into government. They just, and it frustrates me when you have people who sit there and talk about, separation of church and state, which, by the way, that phrase comes back in a SCOTUS decision. I can't remember right off the top of my head which one that is, but in that SCOTUS decision, the majority opinion writer was the one that actually referenced the Jefferson letter and not the Constitution of the United States. So I would love to see, just like, some of these other things that are out there that the SCOTUS has done. I would actually love to see that one in particular get overruled, that decision, like, Dred Scott and some of the other things that were done back in the day that never should have been. I would love to see that get overturned because of the fact that, again, we are a Judeo-Christian based country. We always have been, always will be. And, it's just sad that there are people out there, I guess if you repeat something over and over and over again, that it makes it real, I suppose. All right. Speaking of our rights and protecting our rights and so on and so forth. Did you guys check this out and see this? I've only got a few minutes left. These last two are going to go fairly quickly. But here in the Daily Caller, Governor Hochul, what is it about all these leftists that they call us on the conservative side fascists and dictators, and yet here they are, they're doing fascists and dictator stuff. I just don't get it. But Governor Kathy Hochul says that New York is conducting social media surveillance efforts in order to monitor hate speech. So here's the question that I have for you, Ms. Hochul. Who determines what hate speech is? We're basically getting back into the whole Twitter sphere and the whole X thing. And it just, anyway, she said on Monday that the state is very focused on collecting data from social media platforms as part of an effort to counter online negativity and hate speech. Oh my gosh. How are you going to decide what is hate speech and what is not? How are you going to decide what is negativity and what is not? And why would it even matter whether it's negative or not? So anyway, now she timed this, of course, after the rise in anti-Semitic attacks that were going on in New York, and it was following a meeting with the state's Jewish leaders, local law enforcement, and federal authorities. I just don't. I mean, that's part of the reason why we have things like free speech. I mean, I may not like what you say. Hell, I don't like half of what these leftist morons talk about. They're wrong. I know they're wrong. And, but you know what? I will defend their right to go ahead and say it. This is just ridiculous. And this came out, I think it was today. This is really scary because Joe Biden once again is going to govern by executive fiat rather than allow Congress to write the laws. But here in Red State, Joe Biden's new devious takeover of the internet in the name of, you guessed it, digital equity. So apparently, Joe Biden has decided to propose a new plan that he's going to utilize the FCC to start to dictate to people to micromanage every aspect of how the internet functions. Now, Brenda Carr, who is apparently a Republican appointed member of the FCC, she on X, she spoke out about it in a multi-page statement about it. But she basically said that President Biden has called on the FCC to issue a sweeping set of new regulations in the name of digital equity. For the first time ever, those rules would empower the administrative state to micromanage nearly every aspect of how the internet functions. And she says, I'm a no. Here's the thing, folks. And this, honestly, this is really, this is where all of this boils down to. If you read this document and you understand this document, there is a reason why all the power of the government was broken up into three separate branches that were intended to be equal. That Congress made up of two separate houses. The first house being the people, elected representatives. That's the House of Representatives. And the Senate, originally designed to be representatives of the state legislatures, but had an amendment added to it that made it to where people elected them. And then you had the executive branch, and then you had the judicial branch, which the judicial branch was designed to check the other two branches. The whole point of breaking up that power was to make it so that you didn't have some stupid ass bureaucrat who has the power to be able to dictate via regulations what you can and cannot do. We've moved so far beyond that, and this is the expanse of government. And this is part of the reason why I sincerely hope that whoever the new president is, goes in and actually starts cleaning house, getting rid of all of these bureaucratic nightmares that we have in the case of the three-letter agency. Okay? We need to go back to the idea that small and limited government is what we need for it. Okay? That's what we need. Hopefully we can elect the right people to do it. All right, last thing. Bonnie over on Rumble says, please say happy 10-year birthday to Fat Paws today. It's been 10 years since his transplant. Incredible. Happy 10th, Fat Paws. Glad to have you around. And, of course, I enjoy seeing you and your wife in the chat all the time. And that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you enjoy the program, if you like what I do, head on over to Rumble. Sign up for an account. It is free. Then locate the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel and hit that green follow button so you can always pick me up regardless of whether or not I am banned on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or any of those other wonderful, wonderful outlets. Oh, we will see you Saturday. Oh, speaking of Saturday, I have a great show. It is not going to be my normal show. It is another kind of special show. We are going to have Thanksgiving recipes and things of that nature. So make sure you join us Saturday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for that special show. I've got a amateur chef. He's done it. We've done it 3 years running now. And it's a fan favorite episode to get some great Thanksgiving recipes and stuff. And I'll be posting a download link to go ahead and so you can download both our past and potentially the future ones. He's also got a great story about frying a turkey, he tells me. So anyway, so join us Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you Saturday night. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings Broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.